Yo, 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 what is going on? RoK Familia, it is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today slash hashtag King of the Jumpers. Today we are going to be giving you a full-fledged, true walkthrough guide on literally every area that you need to be aware of when you are considering starting your jumper account. This is going to be done from a free-to-play perspective, so anything that you do beyond what we talk about, whether that's investing red gems in certain areas or even spending money, right? Just know that you may be able to, most likely, increase your overall power. Now, before we get started covering everything, I just want to let everyone know we're going to have time cards. So if you're just tuning in now, you can look at the bottom of the YouTube window and you'll be able to see those along with timestamps that you can fast forward to if you'd like from the description, or just by hovering along the bottom of the YouTube video, you can see the name where it'll have a title card there and text to show you. Before we get started, as always, make sure if y'all are enjoying the content to sub, like, ring the notification bell. If you want to join and be a part of our Discord, you can find a link to that in the pinned comment and description down below. All right, so first thing is first is that let me just explain what a jumper account is, right? Give you some introduction here. The intent of a jumper account is to create it, get a bunch of resources, level your account up to a certain point, in this case, Castle 7, to where you can then jump to another kingdom after you have farmed resources to basically just start farther ahead than a brand new player who is just getting into the game for the first time. There's other, obviously, benefits, but that is the shortest way to explain it. So now let's talk about how you can go about making your jumper account. So you really have two options, right? And I do strongly recommend numero dos. The first option is you can just make a new account on a designated or a target kingdom, right? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Number two is that you can use the new journey option, which in short is something you get if you make an account or if you have an account that you just haven't logged into for a while. Now, I've heard some people mention that it's probably about 30 days. It could be more. I can tell you that I kind of feel like it might be around 30 days, at least from when I last had tested this, but this was about a year and a half ago when we last did. So if that has changed, someone's more than welcome to let us know in the comments down below and we can pin it or update the pinned comment. But in short, you either log into an account you haven't in a while, or one of the tricks here is that you can make a new account and then all you have to do is just get past the tutorial for all intents and purposes, and then you just leave it. Just leave it alone. Don't log into it again for at least a month, and then you'll have something there, right, where you can then utilize that in case you don't have one ready. Now, why is this important? The reason why it's important is because when you utilize New Journey, and I'll show you an example of that right now. Now, the screen that will pop up now actually has two options, and I was scouring to try and find a screenshot, and again, this is not going to be how it looks now, but you will see this on there. It basically gives you two options. One, you can continue and do New Journey, or what you can do is you can do return to your current kingdom, right? And so you just want to make sure that you click the new journey option because you will get starting resources for free. This is essentially doing the exact same thing. When you click new journey, it will then prompt you just like it would if you're making a new account on which kingdom do you want to start out in. So it's basically giving you just a little bit more of a head start with some of the free resources. But again, you can't be mad at any of the RSS, the gems you get, the free gold keys, which is obviously amazing. And then you got the territorial teleport. Now, again, just make sure, like we talked about, that you do prep the account early, or if you just already have one, then you're good to go. You just have to wait until your group starts. Okay, now let's get to picking your civilization, right? Which civilization do you start with? And what are some of the important ones? Now, I'm going to make an argument that I've made previously on certain value areas, but I'm also going to present a couple options here. They're pretty standard, but I personally have one pick that is somewhat, I don't know if I'd say unpopular, but it is uncommon, but I'm going to give you some really good reasonings why. So let's first start off with showing you the civilizations. Now, the most important ones here that you're often going to hear about are going to be, for example, Britain, which is here, and Boudica, and then also is going to be China with Sun Tzu, right? Now, these are the two most likely civilizations that you will hear groups or jumpers talk about running. And they're for a few reasons. If we start with China, who for the most part is kind of the crowd favorite, right? You might even hear people mentioning like France, kind of throwing that in there every once in a while, but usually it's China and Britain. The reason why is because Sun Tzu is, from what many people would say, is one of the best, if not the best, right, purple elite commander that you can get for PvP. And then obviously also helps in PvE as well, but really more so PvP when it goes into your first KVK. So here you get the increased troop defense, right, which is a flat rate that you're getting, or I should just say the 3% in general, that you're getting for all of your troops, right? So it's not just for one troop type, right? That's pretty important. Then you also get the action point recovery, which again is absolutely needed, right, if you want to try to increase, especially during your jumper phase, but also throughout the longevity of how often you're going to need AP just for farming barbs and forts. Then increase building speed, which again, if you think about the area of your account that you're most likely going to max out first, it is pretty much going to be buildings, right? You'll max out buildings way before you max out research, before you get to T5, and that's predominantly because you need to get near max research, right, in order to get your T5 to unlock. So these are just things, or I should say at least down the tree. And so again, these are just things to consider, right, when you're running China, which is why they look like a really good pick. On the other hand, if you look at Britain, right, Boudica is a great PvE commander for peacekeeping, right? You even have the additional bonuses that you'll get from just being able to get your XP gain, right? So once you get Boudica to 3 stars, you can attach the second commander, and then very similar to Lohar, Ethelflaed, a few others, you'll be able to then get additional experience gain from having a second commander attached, which is kind of a way to boost up your PvP, even your gathering commanders, and etc. Right, and with Britain, you get the 5% troop training speed, which is different than what you get with China, and you also get 5% archer attack, right? The ally garrison capacity is okay, but I mean, if you're free to play, right, the most important things you're probably looking at is just Boudica the commander, and then these first two. Now, the third option I'm going to throw out there is one that I think is usually is not too talked about, but it's one that I actually like, and I've ran a few times for a couple of the projects that I've done, which is Germany. And I'm going to explain why I think Germany is very underrated. So one, the big difference here for Germany to China when you're kind of comparing like a 1-to-1 or the apples to apples here is that you have cav attack is 5%, whereas again they have the troop defense of 3% right across the troop types that you're including. Then you have the increased troop training speed, which is 5% here. That's something that China doesn't have. And then you also get 10% on action point recovery. This is pretty big because if you look at China, you only get 5% on the action point recovery. Now, the reason why I like Germany, now I say this because sure, 5% is great, and if you want to min-max all the way, right, and you want to help max out your buildings as fast as you can, then of course I think China's the way to go. And China, for the most part, you can make an argument, right, no matter what, you could still run China. The reason I'd like to throw the idea of Germany in here is because I think there's a lot of value in the 10% action point recovery along with the 5% troop training speed that China doesn't have. Why do I say this? Because the most important resource in the game is troops, right? You need troops to do everything. You can make an argument for resources and other things like that, but usually when you're in your home kingdom, if it's not full-blown civil war, and you're in a unified kind of development-focused kingdom, which a good amount are, if not the majority. It's not like the majority of kingdoms are ravaged by civil war or rogue whales or just rogue players in general, even though I'm sure a good amount are. I like this because it allows for you to focus on training the most important, right, getting the most important resource, which is troops, and you also get the most amount of action point recovery, right, at that 10%, which is also going to help develop those, right, whether it's attacking more barbs, if it's doing more forts, right, these are things that you will be able to have more of a big impact. And Sure, players will make the argument for like the starting commander, but bear in mind, even as a free-to-play, which I can tell you even on my main account that I stopped playing, even though I just recently restarted playing it, you're eventually going to max out, right, all of your, excuse me, I think it's epics, right? Isn't that the purple? I think I just called them elite before. Let me double check so I'm not missing that one there, because I'm totally blinking right now. It is epic, okay. I don't know why I said elite before. But the thing is, you're going to max out all your purples or your epics, and you're eventually going to unlock up, however many legendaries you're able to. But at least for the purples and below, right, you're eventually going to max them out. You'll max skill them, right, get them to max level over a period of time, but you will have access to all of them. So even if you start with Herman, right, you still will have opportunities to get, whether it's Sun Tzu, Boudica, right, the other important commanders or gatherers, other PvPs when it comes to the epics, right, outside of however many legendaries, 1, 2, or 3 that you're able to unlock and maybe have somewhat leveled by the time KvK 1 arrives. So that's my case for Herman. Again, the other route that I actually find very interesting is that if you kind of want to do like a long-term min-max, you could go China for building, and then you could go Korea for research, and then that way you once you get your buildings max, right, you would switch to Korea to take advantage of the 3% research, and then once you get your research maxed, right, then you can switch to your kind of like your ideal end game, whether you want to go Germany for troop training because maybe you're just going to go cav focus, or you're going to go someone like Rome for infantry focus, right, for the troop march speed and the infantry, right? Again, you can kind of figure out what kind of end game or late game meta you want to run, and switch your civilization there. But it's just a very interesting thing. I was having a discussion with someone about this a while ago. Okay, now, with that being said, let's go ahead and get over to our next piece here. And I'm going to try and run through this portion a little quicker. So the next thing here is going to be kingdom types. This is very important to realize when you are doing your jumper account, whether you're solo or you're a part of our group. Right now, there's 4 different kingdom types, and we're going to show those off to you right now. Probably would be good for me to use I'll see if I can find an infograph real quick, but I should be able to show you guys. So let's pull these up. Let me see if I can find a handy dandy image here. Usually there are... I'm actually shocked I'm not finding one on Google Images, which is somewhat wild. Let's see if we just type in ABCD, if that might help us. Oh no. Man, Rough Light was just giving us the KVK stuff. I actually thought it would. Okay, in short. Anyways, I thought I was going to be able to find something so I could use a visual aid, but that's okay. So let's take a look at new kingdoms just so I can give an example. So if we look at prep season, right, and we'll look at, here, let's look at the last continent. So in short, right, the kingdoms are going off of 4 types, right? So I'm just going to have as an example, right? It goes A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D, right? That's how it goes. So what this means and why this is so important is because if you start off in 2704, right, which would be an A kingdom for this example, and then you go here to 2700, you will not be able to collect the same villages or caves, right? It will show that those have been collected. So if you have collected all the villages and you've done, your cave order that you should be doing, which we'll get to later, and you do that for 2704, and then you go to 2700, which is the same type kingdom, right, then those will not be there for you to double up on them when you make it to your final kingdom, right? It also should be noted, for those that even care about this, is that the kingdoms themselves are actually 90-degree turns. Now, I don't know if I can show this. Oh, here, curve hook, top left. Let's see if it works. Yeah. So here's a good example. You can see here how the curvy hook, right? So watch. If you look at the map, you'll notice here that there's a little curve hook here for 1, right? And there's like this little corner piece here that has like this distant island with like another curve, but like there's 2 curves there. So now look at this kingdom of 2703. You'll notice that it rotated left 90 degrees. A little fun fact. And then if you go again, you'll notice that now it's here in the bottom right corner, right? So it rotates like that 90 degrees for each of the 4 types, which also shows you that there are 4 types. Then we'll look at the last one, which is 2701, and the curve, or the banana peel portion here, actually should have been up here. So then we'll show you this on how it is similar. So see? Now you go here, and then you see the curvy parts that are right back. So it shows you that you have 1 of each type for the first 4, right? And it's just an easy way, regardless of how you want to classify it. The easiest way to understand it is that it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, or A, B, C, D, right? Okay, cool. History lesson's good, and we're over that now. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to, you've created your account, you are starting out. What are you actually doing first? So what we're going to touch on now is talking about the first kingdom and what is important to know, and we're going to go over certain buildings and kind of get into the nitty gritty and see if we might be able to speed this portion up a little bit. All right. So as we go, what I will say first and foremost, right, is that remember, you do not want to level up your castle hall past 7, right? Castle 7, level 7 is where you want to stay at. You can get the castle to your city hall to 7, and you can get all your other buildings to 7. Just do not go to 8. That's the most important thing. Next, I actually think it's okay if you want to use 1 contract builder, right? You can save the rest, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but in short, right, things like contract builders or kingdom maps, if you save those once you're at 100% fog clear, you can actually convert those to speed ups. So the important thing here is that it's okay if you want to use a kingdom builder, a contract builder, right? So you can have 2 queues going at the same time. The important part here is that when you do that, here's the big asterisk, is you want to make sure that you join an alliance immediately, but more specifically an active alliance, right? So if you're a solo player, look for an active alliance to join. If you're in a group, then try and use like an alt account, someone just to set the group up so you don't have a main account losing gems. They create the alliance, and then you basically use alliance, you make a couple alliance shells just so that way all of your players, or up to all of your players, can maximize on getting max helps as fast as they possibly can, right? So you're able to get max speed, again, because you're not going to be using speed ups, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but you want to make sure that you are getting max helps to get the max reductions as you are increasing your castle level up to 7, right? Then we'll get into why you would want to leave the alliance afterwards, right? Once you kind of get everything to 7, or you've kind of done your last building queues for those. And arguably research too as well. The next thing here is do not use any speed ups, RSS items, or teleports, right? Unless your group tells you to. My strong recommendation is just don't do it. The only one you're going to end up using is going to be your donkey here, which is your beginner's migration item. Right, this is the one that'll actually allow for you to go to a Nastian stage kingdom. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm trying. And that's essentially what that just means, is a brand new kingdom, right? And for those of you that are curious, I, of course, am happy to provide a visual. So bear with me just a moment. We'll go prep, we'll go here, and you can see here that it says status nascent, right? Okay. Now, next thing here is going to be, like we said, joining an alliance. But the important part here is that once you get all your buildings set, then you want to leave the alliance. And we're going to talk a little bit later in the video on why you want to make sure that you are setting up and creating another alliance, but with an alt account and the benefits there. Now, the order that you want to go in with your buildings is going to be in the order of castle. Where is my... I don't even think I have it built yet. Probably, that's why. Trading post, courier station. I'm blind. I'm forgetting things. Alliance center. Here we go. So you want to make sure that you build the alliance center the moment you're able to build it. And the reason why the alliance center is important is because this is where you get helps, right? Times you can be helped, right, is 5. So you want to make sure that you are increasing this, because you can also see here, right, the amount of helps you get as you increase levels, right? So at level 7, right, which is where you'll eventually be, you can get 11 helps, which is going to help speed up the remaining buildings that you have. So it's very important that you're prioritizing leveling up your city hall and specifically your alliance center, right? These are by far the most important things. So you want to make sure that every time you get to a new City Hall level on your way to 7, which is not that far, right? The very next thing that you upgrade after you get to your City Hall level is your Alliance Center, right? And then after that, just click on your City Hall and do whatever the prerequisites are, right? Whatever you see here listed, do those. And if you want to try and get ahead on that to kind of already start upgrading those, again, there will be some lists that are out there. You can like do a simple Google for, castle level up prerequisites or castle level up buildings, right? And you'll find a pretty simple list, even if you just look on Google Images. Now, once you finish that, right, you're going to obviously have to do things like upgrading your tavern. That's pretty standard. And then eventually you'll want to upgrade your academy so you can start working on other techs. And we'll briefly mention that here in a bit. But then next, you want to prioritize your siege barracks. And we're going to talk about a little bit later why you want to prioritize your siege barracks first over the remaining barracks, and then you can start leveling up everything else. Scout camp would be good too as well, because it obviously is going to help you increase the speed at which you can go out and search for caves. So again, you can make the argument that doing something like, once you have your Alliance Center, your tavern done at those level 7s, then you could actually go ahead, and I think it's okay to do your siege barracks, and then you can do your scout camp. You can make the argument whether or not that's tradable. But again, that would be my recommendation. The next thing is, do not claim your side quests. Do not do this, right? Now, your main quest, I'll be honest, I am actually okay with this, just because you're going to get not only some red gems that you can invest into things like VIP, which we'll touch on in a bit, but you can also get commander sculptures, right, for whoever your main commander is, which is going to help skill them up a little bit. Of course, you're going to get some resources as well, but the reason why I say do not collect your side quests is because you're going to need some of those extra resources for eventually, once you end up getting over to the Past Glory event, which we'll talk about in a bit. And it also allows for the resources, I believe, for these ones to not be lootable, but someone can correct me on that in case we are wrong. Now, when it comes to searching for caves, this is very important, is that there's a limit on caves, and there has been for a while. So the limit on caves, and you can find these by zooming out, and you will come up to this screen. You will click Explore. When you do that, it will show you everything that you need to explore. Now, all of these little houses or huts here, yes, you are right. You have to individually click on those. Have fun with your thumbs, index finger, whatever. Maybe you guys do the pinky toe, whatever you're into. But have fun clicking all those times, because that's what you have to do. You essentially have to go here, do it, click it, right? I'm sorry. You could just click this, and then you basically have to like zoom out, do this one, zoom out, and that's the trick. You don't actually have to click confirm. You can just click it and then go out. I'll show you one more just to give you an example. So we click, and then I zoom out, right? So, but you have to essentially do this all the time. Now, when it comes to the caves specifically, right, if I go to a cave here, I'll do investigate, right? The thing you want to keep in mind is that there's 3 types of treasure levels. There's low, medium, and high. The cap here is that once you collect 400 caves, once you get to 401, anything past 400 will always be a low-level cave. So there's a specific order that you want to go when you are collecting caves. If you want to min-max this, you do 60 high-level caves, 120 medium caves, and then 40 low-level caves. Now, that is the rough number. Bear in mind that even though the high and the medium caves total to 180, you need to make sure that you are counting, right? However many high and medium caves you have, depending on the kingdom type. Now, there are cave lists that are out there where you can access those. And so again, and if anyone is interested, I will actually have a link to the caves list that will be in the description of this video. So if you want to get access to that, so you know what those cave lists are for each of the kingdom types, you can add those high and medium caves up, confirm them when you're going out and searching. So that way you will be able to get the 180 high and medium caves in the final kingdom as well, of course making sure you go to a different kingdom type. But in the first kingdom, you can do high, medium, and low. You just have to make sure that you only do about 40 low, right? Again, you want to try and end up at about 220 caves between high by focusing on priority of high, medium, low. right? But again, make sure you guys do consult with the cave list and you can confirm as you go. The other thing we mentioned is clicking on all villages. Of course, you're going to need to. Now, the caveat here with clicking on all villages is that you're actually going to get economy techs for free. So you really only need to start researching the military side. And the asterisk here is that you also need to make sure that you're leveling up your academy. Because if you don't have the academy leveled up and the techs unlocked to actually research, then from my understanding, you will not actually get a point, or you won't get a tech that's going towards that if you don't have the academy leveled up and unlocked. So just keep that in mind, that you want to have at least a couple levels unlocked for the academy before you start going hard on the villages. You can even make the argument, maybe you want to wait till academies 5 or 6, 5, 6 or 7 right before you start doing it, right? Just something to mention as of note. But you're going to get things from villages like RSS, you'll get troops, you'll get kingdom maps, and that's the thing there for the kingdom maps. Kingdom maps allow for you to unfog an area, which you will be able to do if you want once you get to Final Kingdom, right? As you can see now in the kingdom that we're in, it's older, so all the fog is already cleared out because it happens when you progress in your monument, and we'll show you a brief example of that. So if I click on monument and we go to the very end, right, you'll see here, oh, I'm sorry, here it is, where it says long peace, right? Explored all fog blocks in the kingdom, and you'll see here right at the end of the chapter, whether or not the objective is achieved, all fog in the kingdom will be cleared, right? So that's just something very important to note. Then we get to the academy, like we talked about, right? It's very important to focus on the military techs there for the reasons that we mentioned. Next, we get to commanders. Now, commanders is, I'm going to try and keep this pretty short here, right? The recommendation I have is to focus on gathering commanders, right, with like a splash of your peacekeepers. And specifically, this is for when you do get peacekeepers. The reason I say it's important to focus on the gathering commanders is because by doing that, it's going to help you for the Past Glory event when it comes to RSS donation. It'll also help you by allowing for you to also take advantage eventually, right? Because you have to level up some commanders as well. To where once you kind of do the barb and the fort event, right? And you can make the argument, yeah, peacekeepers will might help a little bit more there than the gatherers do, but the gathering is also going to help you overall in kind of stocking up as much resources as you can before you end up going into the Final Kingdom. That's why I say it's really important, because gathering is actually going to help you out a lot more than you think, because you're probably going to end up getting resource strapped when you start upgrading your buildings. Around the same time, if not before, you end up using all your speed ups, right? Depending on how many you're able to accumulate. So that's why I personally like to prioritize gathering a little bit more than peacekeepers, even though I do think it's important to at least try and get your peacekeepers to about 20, but more specifically 3-star, especially for the ones that are able to help you with training and getting the bonus experience. We'll talk about that in a moment. So the big thing here for gatherers is that you want to make sure that over time you're leveling them to 37. And the important part there, and I'll just kind of give you an example here. We'll use Cleo as an example, right? Who's a gatherer. Rough life. I do not have... Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to briefly switch an account here just so I can show you. I'll just go to my main real quick, or I should say my X-main. See what I did there? It was like X-Man, but it's X-main. No? Just me? That's cool. So let me load this up, and I'll show you a couple gatherers, and I'll explain exactly why it is important that you want to level them to 37. But before you go to 37, you have to make sure that you max out their gathering skill. And I'll show you a couple really cool ways that you can do that. So again, let's take a gatherer here. We'll just look at Sarka, for example. So when I look at Sarka, right, you want to make sure that you're looking at the skills, right, of the commanders. I was say mortals, but the commanders. And so as you're going, you want to take a look at each of them, right? And you'll notice like Centurion, his gathering skill is 3. Most of the other commanders, if not all the other commanders, have their gathering skill at 2. And so when you're leveling this up, you can actually, let me see if I have someone here that I don't have high skilled. Okay, so an example here is when you start out leveling your commander, you will have an opportunity to see this button here in the bottom right. This actually allows for you to lock the skills. So for example, right, what this means is that if I click on this, it locks the third skill. Now, unfortunately, it only goes in order of 1, 2, 3, and 4, so you can't do like a custom set where we say, hey, I only want to level the third skill. But what this will do is increase your chances for skills 3 and below. And that's because if I have this full starred, then I'm able to upgrade each. Right, so again, it's just a nice custom set they're able to give you. But if an immortal has, basically what it allows for you to do is it allows for you to upgrade the commander. I don't know why I'm saying immortal, but it allows for you to upgrade the commander and at least have the skill unlocked so you can use it. But this gives you the opportunity to kind of go back, because usually what you would do in situations before is you would only skill the commander up enough to where you unlocked the skill, and then you would wait to max it before you kept going. In this way, with the update, it actually allows for you to keep benefiting from the skills that you unlock while still being able to take advantage of skilling up or having higher chances of skilling. So for example, if Gathering was 1, I could easily just go here and just have a 100% guarantee rate of leveling up my first skill because it's going to go here first. Right? You could even do it where you level up the first skill and then you level up the second skill because you know that the first skill is already maxed, so the next points it goes into is the second. But in this case, if the Gathering skill is 2, then you want to set this bar at 2 and you would save it, right? And then this would make it so that way you can invest your universal sculptures into, right, which is kind of where you would see here, right? This is where your universal sculptures would show. This is what you need in order to level up the skills here, right? So this is basically what you would do if you want to level up and max the Gathering skills out first, and then you can go ahead and level up your commanders to 37. The reason I say 37 is important, and I'll explain why. If we go to the talent tree here, right, you'll notice that it doesn't really matter what immortal you're using. If they're a Gathering commander, they have the same talent set. And here's an example of how I have my talents set for Gathering, for one of my Gathering commanders. You want to make sure that you're basically endgame trying to get to superior tools, which gives you an increased gathering speed of all kinds of resources up to 25%. It's 5% per level. This is what you eventually want to get to for each of your Gathering commanders, right? It's very important. Then, from there, right, what I would say, so there's a few commanders here that you are going to unlock over a period of time and get. Right, some of the Gathering commanders that you're going to look for, my recommendation, of course, is to try and level them up from lowest tier to highest tier. So an example of this is going to be, you're probably going to want to go for someone like Centurion first, even though his Gathering skill is 3, right? He's going to be the easiest to level. Then you would do your blues, right, which comes into like Sarka, Gaius, and Constance, right? Again, gatherers. Then you're going to look at your perps, which I think there's one here, which is, oh yeah, it's the Georgia girl, and she's purple. Here we go. So like Queen Tamar of Georgia, right? Another gatherer. She's purple, very similar with Matilda, which again, I did just show you guys Matilda, but here you could see I only have her at 37. I haven't done anything past that. And you can see I haven't put any extra skill points in here once I was able to get her Gathering skill maxed. Then you have Joan of Arc, which I have to scroll up a little bit more here for Joan. Again, Joan is, again, at the time, was using her for some PvP as well. But so again, there are some exceptions. But initially, right, when you're just starting out, right, again, you would just try and focus on getting to 37. Then you have people like Ishida Mitsunari, Siondiak, and then Cleopatra, right, which are going to be your legendaries. And I can show off one here, right, Cleo. I think I have, where's Ishida here? So we have Siondiak, which I showed briefly, and then you got Ishida, right, Mitsunari, right, which is going to be your legendaries. So again, you may not necessarily need to get them all the way, right? I think getting these characters eventually to 37 is going to be ideal, especially if you're free to play, because Gathering is just vitally important for you to do things like troop training, healing, etc. But again, that's my recommendation when it comes to gatherers. Now, when we talk about Peacekeepers, that's the next one here. My recommendation is to try and focus on the important peacekeepers. And that is going to be the ones that are giving you the experience gain for commanders. An example, there's actually 6 of them, right? We'll kind of start top down here. Ethelfled, which is 1, will give you, if you can see here, right, passive synergy bonuses. Troops led by this commander deal 35% increased damage, but the important one here is both commanders gain 35% increased experience. And as we showed, or I guess I'll show now, you have to have the commander at 3-star in order to get the secondary commander slot to open. And I'll give you an example. If you see Ishida here at 2-star, level 10, 3-star, level 10 for El Cid, right? But I'll show you here as far as kind of doing a march. So if I click on, let me see if I can just find a random barb. So we'll click here. And just so I can give you the visual, right, we will scroll down and we'll click on Ishida. 2 stars, doesn't have a secondary slot right next to it on the right. If I scroll back down and we go to El Cid at 3-star, you'll see second commander slot, and I can place someone there. So the important part here is trying to unlock and get the commanders that are going to give you EXP gain as peacekeepers, because those are the ones that are going to help you out so much. Right now, you may end up getting other peacekeepers, and that's fine as well, even if you have to level them. Now, if you end up getting some early ones, obviously that's better. And obviously, if you end up starting someone like Bridensiv, right, and you get Boudica, then obviously that makes your life a little bit easier there. But the ones that you're going to want to try and focus on over time is going to be your Ethelfled for the 35% bonus. And if we go down, the next one here is going to be, where's my Mulan? So Mulan, as again, you're going to get 95%. She actually gives the most, just ahead of Lohar. But 95% experience that you get is just bananas, right? Then we have Montezuma. Now, Montezuma is someone I don't think I have unlocked yet, and I'm sure... Ooh, gosh, give me a moment here to find how he looks. I hope I'm looking in the right place. I bet you I just went too far here. Here we go. There we go. Nice. So Montezuma is another one, and you can see here that the... Oh, gosh, where is it? Am I blind? 10 bucks as I'm blind. Yeah, it was the second one. So you get the flower right. This one you get 25% experience. And then we have Boudica, which I will have to scroll up here for her. And you'll see that you get... What's my bonus? Oh, it just shows it up here. So you'll see both commanders gain 20% bonus for the EXP gain. And then we have Dio-chan, which I believe is one of the epics. I have to scroll all the way down for this one, is here. And I have to remember which one it is. Second skill. Again, bonus experience is 25% that you end up getting. And then the last one is going to be Lohar, which will show him off as well. And you'll see here that he ends up giving 70%, right? So the level of percentage game of importance, right, is basically Mulan, Lohar, right? Mulan 95%, Lohar 70%. You get 35% from Ethelfled. That would be your number 3. Then you could go Montezuma or Dio-chan for 25%, and then Boudica for 20%. Right? Now, the moment that you get any of these immortals, right, these are the ones you want to immediately prioritize. If you have to mess around with another peacekeeper, right, bear in mind that some of the other peacekeepers are actually okay to work with as well, because there's a chance that you might end up using this. Some examples would be someone like Belisarius. You might use them in a cav march. For example, if you end up getting Minamoto, or even just Cao, right, probably more so than Minamoto, just because you can't really skill at Minamoto unless you pay, right, so something like that. Again, even if you have to, like, use Markswoman for a little bit, that's fine, right, but my recommendation would be for people like Markswoman and, like, Kira, right, so to speak, unless there's been some kind of change with Kira that I'm unaware of. Again, that might be the flex there, but my recommendations would be try to focus on those ones, like the most important, then you have the second level of importance, and then third when it comes to the peacekeepers, so that way you can really invest your resources when it comes to sculpts, stars, and EXP tomes, right, in the most appropriate places that are going to allow for you to level over a period of time. About 40 minutes, wild. Okay. Then we end up getting to, and we're almost done here now, so we end up getting into expedition. So for expedition, right, you want to end up going, and I actually might be able to go back to my thing here in a moment, but for expedition, you want to make sure that you are just trying to get as far as you can in expedition, right? So you want to start off by coming in here, right? You would click challenge, and then you basically just pick your troop lineup, right? So this is why it's important to try and have a second commander, because when you attach a second commander, you're able to use the active skills, right? Now the first commander, you have active, you have the skills, and you also have the talent tree that applies to that march. But for the second commander, only the skills will apply for the march. So this is just very important, that if you want to have just better results in expedition, because these will obviously give you a lot, right? So as an example, this chest will pop up daily, and if you click on it, you're going to get resources. You can see here you get some EXP tomes, right? You get items and materials that are very useful, and they also give you a shop here, right? This is one of the ways that you get, this is pretty much like the primary way that you would get Ethelfled unlocked, but you could also find other very useful sculptures and stars in here that can help you as a free-to-play. So the recommendation for expedition is get as far as you can, right, initially, and then as you start doing more level increases, you get the second commander unlocked over time, right, you want to kind of keep trying expedition every day, and you just want to try and get as far as you can. You can even use buffs if you really want, which again, you could use like a basic army expansion, just depending on how hard you really want to push it. My recommendation would be, for the most part, unless you're just familiar with those or you want to test it out, just kind of do the normal. You check it on every day and you try and advance as much as you can. Next is going to be the courier station. Now the courier station is really important. It's going to have this kind of, as I like to call her, Esmeralda, big Notre Dame fan, or Hunchback of Notre Dame fan. And so you'll click on here, and this is the Mysterious Merchant's Boutique, or the courier station as I like to call. And in this one, the important thing here, this is kind of like why we talked about not using your like resource items specifically before, right? Like you don't want to use those. And that's mainly because you want to use any of the resources you have up here that you collect, which is also why we mentioned another reason for focusing on gathering commanders, is because you want to try and max buy out the courier station every day. Anytime you get a free reset, you want to try and max buy this out as much as you can, right? You want to use all of your resources, but there's a specific order that you want to focus on. My recommendation is focusing on speed ups first, which is row 2, then going to row 4, which is your EXP tomes and your stars, then going to row 3, which is going to be your boosts and your gathering speed, right? So gathering and resource boosts, and then 1, which is going to be basic resources, right? And anytime you see any of these deals with percentages off, right, you basically want to do this, but you do not want to spend red gems. Save your red gems. You want to only use resources, or better yet, only purchase items that cost resources, right? That's the important part. After you do that, you click free, you get another recycle, and you do the same thing over again. Now let's get to VIP. So I think VIP is really important, but let me specifically talk about the VIP shop first. So the VIP shop actually will play a huge part in what you're going to be able to get, because there are some very valuable things here. The first thing is VIP 2, which is going to be your basic action point recovery. You want to try and max buy this like you want to max buy 5-minute speed ups, right? Which you'll get these at VIP 3, along with getting your equipment materials choice chests. Then, right, so the most important things here, I really believe, is going to be your basic action point recovery, your 5-minute speed ups, right, your purple stars that you're going to get, and then your legendary stars that you're going to get, right? And so again, those would be the most important ones. Now, if you have, let's just say if you have a bunch of extra resources and you're not too worried, even though I would still strongly recommend saving as much of your resources as you can for eventually when the Past Glory event comes up, which we're going to talk about that in a moment, right? You could buy some of the material chests, but the 4 things I just mentioned are by far, in my opinion, the most important ones that you need to make sure you're trying to max buy, which is also another reason why it's so important to focus on leveling your gathering commanders and basically doing the nonstop gathering as much as you can. Then we end up getting to general VIP. Now, my recommendation here for VIP is pretty straightforward. I'm a big believer in VIP. I think VIP gives you a lot of buffs. I mean, you can even just see here, right, when I stopped a little less than a year and a half ago, I'm at VIP 14. And you can see here that there's a lot of great bonuses, right? I'm at 46% for production, right? I'm at 25% gathering speed, 5% material production, 5% troop capacity, 20% action point recovery, building and research speed is at 15%, right? Hospital capacity, all the attack stats, training speed is up, right? Again, a lot of the bonuses are great, but we're going to focus on the early ones here. So I think it's really important that there's a couple milestones you want to try and hit. VIP 6 is pretty much the first milestone that you want to hit. Now, to get to VIP 6, this is going to cost you 11.5k red gems. That's the total amount of gems that you need to invest to get to VIP 6, right? That means that spending less than that, you'll get to the other VIP levels. But VIP 6 is important for a few reasons. One, because, and probably the most important, is that it unlocks a second building queue. But outside of that, it increases your building speed, which is great for eventually once you get to Final Kingdom. But the gathering speed at 10% is what's really going to help. So if you are able to hit VIP 6 before that past glory event comes around, which you might be able to, again, this should hopefully help you out just with gathering, whether you hit it in time or afterwards. If you're able to get to this while you're still doing your jumper before you get to Final Kingdom, it will help, right? Some of the other things that it's going to help on as well is that 10% action point recovery, and then your training speed, right? These are going to help a lot. The next one is going to be VIP 7, right? VIP 7 I think is really useful because it's going to start giving you one epic commander sculpture, so a universal head that you're going to be able to use, and this goes into upgrading commander skills. Then the next one is going to be VIP 9, and this is where you're going to start getting 2 epic commander sculptures and a silver key. And then the very last one here is going to be getting to VIP 10. Once you get to 10 is once you start getting a gold key plus a legendary universal head that you'll be able to use for your legendary commanders, right? So even though I'm a big fan, like if you ever ask me about it, I will always tell you, you need to absolutely invest into VIP. Like every single red gem needs to go there, but there are specific moments where you want to invest red gems. For example, one of the most important ones that comes to mind is the More Than Gems event, right? You want to try and save up. From what I remember, I think it was about 50k red gems that you wanted to try and save up over a period of time. Now, usually in between events, from what I remember, I was pretty much able to do that as more or less a free to play, right? Just because of how not often, but just the in between period, the intervals between when the event came and then when it came next. And this is because when you use your red gems on the More Than Gems event, it allows for you can basically just put your red gems into VIP, and depending on how much you spend, you will get free rewards, right? That's why it's really important to try and once you hit these VIP milestones, then you basically want to do nothing, or I'm sorry, what you really should be doing is once you hit VIP 6, arguably 7, right, then you just want to do nothing but save your red gems for when the event comes around. Next, we're going to briefly talk about using AP. This is pretty straightforward, right? You want to make sure that you're using your AP daily, right? And your AP gauge you're going to see by clicking on here, and you can see that you have 1500 AP points, right? So whatever AP you have, we're using it before you go to sleep, when you wake up. You want to make sure that you're going out and attacking barbarians, and if you can, doing some forts as well. Now, if you can get this to like a 50-50 ratio, or even just doing some forts every day, even if you are predominantly focusing on barbarians, that is fine, right? If you do nothing but just do barbs all day, that's fine as well, but just make sure that you are using your AP daily. Next is, and the other thing there is, do not use AP items. Save your AP items as well, right? You do not need to use those. Now we're getting towards the end here, finally, which is setting up your alliance to farm. This is so important, and the thing that you really want to make sure that you are doing here is, like we talked about before, you want to join an alliance when you make the account because you want to take advantage of the helps, and once you get to Castle, or City Hall in this case, 7, and you get the majority of your buildings to 7 as well, then you're going to find a time where you're going to want to leave that alliance. You're going to want to make an alt account, and then you're going to want to use that alt account or that second account to create an alliance that your main account can join. Then from there, your main account will donate to the Alliance every day. You will get the daily rewards, which is an 8-hour speed up, and then after a week, you'll get two 24-hour speed ups, and I believe plus the 8-hour for the day, right? So it's just a way to boost extra speed ups by doing that. This is something I strongly recommend every player does because, one, it doesn't take that long to make another account and to just go through the main storyline missions to get enough red gems so you can make an alliance. And then once you make the alliance, you don't have to play the account anymore. You can just go back to your main. You don't have to worry about logging in, and you'll be okay. Unless they've changed something that I don't know about, that I didn't read in all the patch notes that I went over ever since I stopped playing, where maybe you'll get auto-kicked or auto-replaced. But again, even if that is the case, right, and let's just say that does happen, even though I don't think that would, right, you still don't have to worry about creating the alliance because it's already created. So again, something to take advantage of because it's great. Now we're finally going to get into the past glory event, and I think this is really important to talk about so we have a good understanding. So for the past glory event, right, we'll go ahead and show that off now, and we'll kind of go through each of the areas, or each of the stages, I should say. So we'll look here, and in past glory, there's 3 stages. The first stage is going to be donating resources. Second stage is killing barbarians. And then stage 3 is donating commander sculptures. So when you donate, right, it's 300,000 resources to donate for one of these chests. Now these chests give really good rewards, and let me see here if we can show. So you'll get here it is. It's the Crusader's supply chest, right? But remember, there's limits. So you have a 20 limit on each of the resources, but again, it is still free rewards, right? So you want to try and get as much as you can. Now you have to factor this in because if we times this by 10, that's 3 mil, 26, right? So you're looking at 6 mil, 18 mil across your 3 primary resources. And again, but you still have the opportunity to get at least 60 chests from that point. And again, the chests are really good. Then we end up getting over to stage 2, which is going to be attacking barbarians or doing forts, right? And you can see here, every 10 barb troops you do, you get a chest. Now the recommendation here, based on what you get for stage 2, let me see where they have this listed for what you get for the payout. Yeah, so for here you'll get the chest, and you can see here, right, the cost, right, the two kinds of rewards that you'll get. Now I do have this listed, and let me see here real quick. So for stage 2, if you do the forts, you'll get speed ups, gems, and equipment. If you do the barbs, you'll just get resources. So this is just really important of a distinction to make. And so I think because of that, along with spending less action points than you would doing the 10 barbarians, right, you'll get more rebuilding points, plus you'll get the Crusader's bounty, right, which, like we said, is just a different chest. So again, the recommendation there is to make sure that we are doing as many forts as possible for the speed ups, the gems, and then any potential equipment. And then we get into the last event here, which is going to be the third event. This is donating commander sculptures. Now the recommendation here, in order so you can take advantage of the rewards tab, is to make sure that you are, one, doing any and all events that are happening during the time that you're in your first kingdom, and then also donating, right, basically anything that isn't, I would say, an epic, you probably should be donating, but in the order of green, blue, and then situationally for purple. But then you should be trying to keep all of your epic heads. Only really if you absolutely need to get rid of an epic head, I would just strongly recommend asking someone first. But it should be okay to go green, blue, purple, if not all your purple, depending, because you want to try and get all of the legendary sculptures here, right? This is really important. Even doing like the legendary stars, maybe even doing the purple sculptures eventually when you are able to, depending on how many, and that's the important thing here, right, is depending on how many points you can get, but at minimum trying for these 20 sculpts and then trying for the legendary stars, right? I think those things would help you out a lot. And then again, you could go for like the purple sculpt, universal sculpt heads, and then the stars if you absolutely need those. Just because, again, if you're free to play, right, those are going to be a little bit more important to you over a period of time. So that's why if you end up getting purple immortals that you just don't think you're going to use, right, that's why I say situationally it would be okay for you to get rid of those. Okay, and that covers Past Glory. And really, the thing here about Past Glory is that you should be trying to find a kingdom. Now, Past Glory will start after Eve of the Crusade finishes, right? So an easy way to find this is you just have to go and look for kingdoms that are about to enter KVK, because Past Glory starts once EOTC finishes, which is the KVK prep event, right? So once you get into day one, after they've captured a certain fortress, then you're actually able to have that start. And I'm going to switch the account now just so I can show that to you, and then we'll briefly talk about a few more things along with Final Kingdom, and then we'll be done. What am I at? Almost an hour? Killing it right now. It's a lot, man. Like, it's, again, to really walk you through everything, it takes some time. The next thing here is going to be, while we wait for the account to pull up, is going to be gift codes. I think gift codes are really important and something that I don't usually hear people talk about when it comes to your Jumper account, but a place where you can find gift codes is going to be on the official RoK Discord. You can find this in like your world chats or your in-game chats possibly, depending on who's posting gift codes, if you guys have a gift code room or a group, DM group set up in-game. You can also find them in sometimes mails. They'll have these posted if it's an Alliance mail. You can sometimes find these codes on Reddit or Facebook, but one of the best places you can start off looking is on the official RoK Discord. So here is where we can show you in the kingdom we're in right now, and you'll notice that there's a horn up here, right? So I click on the horn, I click on Chronicles, and you can see here that the Crusader Fortress, right, says at the end of the chapter, whether or not the objective is complete, all Crusader fortresses throughout the Lost Kingdom will be activated. So you have to capture that before, oh gosh, hang on, where is it real quick? So I have to go to Word of Conquest, and you'll see here for Past Glory, it says after recapturing your camp's ruined Crusader Fortress is when this starts. So one, you want to make sure that the kingdom you're going to is a strong kingdom that's going into their KVK, so they have a high chance of capturing their Lost Crusader Fortress the moment that it opens, so that way Past Glory is able to start as soon as possible, right? So kind of just doing a little bit of research on, you know, how strong the alliances, or I should say, well, the alliances as well, plural, but you also just want to take a look at how strong the kingdom is, right? Because again, the faster Past Glory starts, the more time you're going to have to take advantage of it earlier on. Then we'll get into the very last bit, which is transitioning from your first kingdom to your last kingdom. So when you get to the last kingdom, of course, the obvious things, you can start leveling past Castle 8 or Castle 7 going to 8. You need to make sure that you're jumping to the correct province and joining the alliance in order to maximize helps as soon as possible, right? And that's something you'll coordinate with your group if you're in one. If you're solo, then you can just join an alliance. You want to make sure that if you're going to upgrade academies or barracks, that you have enough speed ups in order to do so. Now, even though I'm not 100%, again, I'm still iffy on this, but the reason why I say that is because if you want to upgrade your academy or your barracks, when you're upgrading them, you cannot train troops, just like you cannot research techs while they're upgrading. That's why it's better for the moment you click to upgrade them and you get your max helps, go ahead and use speed ups on them, so you always will be you'll always be able to make sure that you have a tech going, or you always have training going with the littlest amount of downtime. So that's something that I think is really important. The next thing is going to be the power up event. Right, so if you want an opportunity or a chance to try and hit like 1.5 mil for the power-up event, right, a strong recommendation here is to train T1 troops. And I'm going to explain why I'm saying that. So something that I recently came across, which I think is just a fantastic piece of literature, and I think just good information here, which is the troop tier comparison chart from Everything RoK. So shout out to them. And something you'll see here is that the power ratio. So when I train a T1 troop, the power I'm getting for them is 1-to-1. when I start training to T2, you'll notice that you start losing that. As 2, it's not 2 to 2, right? Or 2 to, or higher than that, right? Where it's showing that when you increase the tier, it's going up. Same thing here when I go to T3, and then you finally start getting the increase where it's more than 1 for T4, but you don't start getting the max value in it until you hit T5, right? Where the ratio is actually more than it is there. But early on, if you want to level yourself up the fastest that you can to try and hit that 1.5, all you need to do is just constantly train T1 troops, at least until the event ends. And my strong recommendation there actually as well is to keep training T1 and do that all the time. The only time in which you wouldn't want to train T1 is if there's a specific event that you have to train a higher tier for. If you're sleeping and you don't have your, well, actually, almost any time, because even if you have Castle 25 and your T1 units as well, you can train the max amount, but it's usually, I think, about 7 hours or so, a little less than that. So the recommendation there is that you probably would want to train T2 or T3 while you're sleeping, but when you're up, you want to constantly be training T1, and then you would basically just upgrade them. And an example of this is if you click on here, there will be, here, let me actually just go back real quick to the main, just so I can show you this as a small little tip here. And then I think we only have like 2 or 3 more line items left, which is fantastic because I need to get to sleep. So let's go ahead and we'll talk about this one once the account loads up, and I'll just give you a brief example of what I'm talking about. So I was going to be like, don't freeze on me. I've spent so much time on this quality video. Okay, so an example of this is that if you go here, right, and for the moment, I'm actually just going to speed this up because I don't really care too much about this one. Okay, cool. So let's just take Siege for example, but this applies to any of the troop types, is that if I want to train, and let's say I go to T1, you'll notice that there's a little arrow here. This is to upgrade the tier. Basically what it means is that it subtracts the amount of time and resources from the next tier up that I want to go to. So if I click this, right, and more specifically, even though you can't, let me clarify that. When you're upgrading your troops, it will automatically upgrade to the strongest tier. So what that means is that it will minus how much. So you could see here 280, 280, 300, right? But it's 120, 120. If I go to T4, you'll see 400, 400, right? What it's doing is it's subtracting the food and the wood from the T4 troop, along with the amount of time it takes to train, right? Which is 6 hours, a little less than 6 hours at max level, like we mentioned. I think I said less than 7, but actually less than 6. So it'll minus that from the 1 day 7 hours, and you can see that here, right? It says 1 day 1 hour, and then 280, 280. So just to keep in mind, right, the recommendation here is to try and train as many T1s as you can, at least to try and hit the power up event, and then after you finish the power event, try and level up as many T1s as you can, because you can always upgrade them to your highest tier over a period of time, or again, you can train your T2s or T3s right when you sleep. This is just what I would recommend. I think is good practice, because when you upgrade a troop, it'll cost less and take less time, especially when it comes to like bulk training events. The last few things here is going to be like min-maxing upgrades, right? So once you get to Final Kingdom, the order that you want to go in is now going to be, which some are the same, but it's now going to be Castle, Alliance Center, Scout Camp. Sorry, let me show the Alliance Center real quick here if I can. Oop, I gotta zoom in a little bit more. There we go. Wherever my Alliance Center is, I guess I can only go one. So again, it's gonna be Castle, it'll be Alliance Center, and then it's gonna be your Scout Camp for number 3. And I say that because it's going to be really important for you to unfog the map as fast as possible, because you want to see who's there in the Final Kingdom, who's in your province, who's in other provinces. You also want to be able to click on all the villages and do all the caves as soon as possible. And as you increase your level, you'll notice that, right, once you get to level 5, you get a second scout. Once you get to level 11, you'll get a third scout. And as you start increasing your level, your exploration range will increase as well, right? Now, you'll probably clear the fog before you hit Castle 25. That's pretty much a guarantee. But you do want to work on that because it also increases the speed that you're searching, right? So you have the march speed, and then you also have the level increases. And then once you end up getting to Castle 11, right, it starts making things a lot easier for you. You'll finish fog a lot faster. Then you can do Tavern, Academy. Right, you would only do Academy before the Scout Camp if you need like a priority tech that you have to level up, and you just need to go through it real quick after you get the max helps to use the speed ups. Then you can do the remaining castle prerequisites, and then while you're waiting, right, so there's going to be times where you're upgrading your castle and you have to wait. Like you've either ran out of speed ups, and you're just now having to wait. When that's happening, that's when you should be leveling up your other prerequisite buildings. And the recommendation there would be to focus on something like barracks, your production, and then the remaining of your buildings there. Last thing here, or sorry, I guess, what do I have here? Wait for max ups. Yeah, so very last thing here is going to be the Academy Tech Path, right? So Academy Tech Path I think is really important, and this is going to be pretty short. The recommendation here is to try and focus on building and research upgrades that are going to be in your eco or your economic tech tree. These ones are going to be masonry, because it's going to give you building percent, 15% when you max it. Writing, which is going to give you 10% for research. Then you're going to go a little bit farther. You're going to get to engineering. This is going to give you 35% for building, which totals at 50. And then you're going to get mathematics, right, which gives you 15% here, along with writing at 10%. So you're going to have 25% for research. The main thing here is you want to try and focus purely on the eco tree. You want to max these 4 techs out before you start researching specifically anything else, right? Because you're going to keep doing buildings constantly. But you want to make sure that as you're increasing your academy levels, each new castle level, that you're checking to see when the next level for each of the techs will open up, so you can immediately start researching those. And now, I finally think that is it for us at the moment. Again, I don't think there's anything else for me to cover. Obviously, make sure you're donating to tech. A lot of these things are pretty standard. And then, of course, make sure that you're choosing your commander view, because you're going to unlock these, which are just extra bonuses that you can get for your commanders. And obviously some of these are very helpful, right? You get the commander EXP bonuses, gathering speed, right? You have additional gathering speed here in troop load. You have like troop buff stats, which can help you when you're going out and doing your PvE, along with any PvP that you may do in a controlled way, depending on your kingdom and how things go. But that's probably the last thing there, right? Is just don't forget about setting your commander stats up, because that is really important. And now I think we're done. We're at about a minute. Oh my God, I'm at an hour and 7 minutes for this video. And I think that we've covered everything. Again, for those of you who are still around, I hope that you enjoy this. Again, I'm going to have, like I said, the outline there. I may even post my kind of walkthrough outline notes that I have been going off of to make sure that I could try to remember to cover everything that needs to be covered, because there's a lot. This is one of the reasons why I like doing these in-depth videos, because pretty much every other jumper walkthrough guide or jump guide video that I've seen are just like short highlights, right? And it's not to say that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but it just doesn't paint the fullest, it doesn't paint the complete picture that it needs to paint for, if you are a new player, how to actually go about doing everything, right? So again, I hope this helps. And those of you who stuck around this long, or even if you just kind of scrolled through and clicked on the areas that you wanted to watch, it did help. And I'd love to know what you guys think in those comments down below. Please let me know. And I will just say this as a last moment. I'm sure I probably missed something or 1 or 2 things, but I definitely wanted to try and do the best job that I could to make sure that I was able to include the majority, if not everything. And if I was able to include everything, then fantastic. If not, let me know, and I'll obviously edit those things in to the pinned comment. But that is it for me. Until next time, we will catch y'all later. And yeah, that's it. I'm done.